Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jill, and I'm so thankful you guys could be here today. Today I'm going to discuss birth order and psychology, but first I thought we'd see a little short video.
Now, yeah, my brother was the oldest, the first, the hopes and dreams of all the generations to come, the firstborn child. Isn't that precious? How many firstborn children do you have in here? Anybody firstborn, the oldest in the family? Look at him, 1, 2. Look at you, so smart. Did you organize your group coming tonight? Yes, you did. Isn't that precious? You said what time to meet back at the band when this is over. You said, I'll hold the tickets and I'll pass them out when we get to the door. You are so busted. And the babies of the family. Any babies of the family here? Oh. Yeah, look, now it's... Look at you, aren't you precious? You still sitting by your mama over there? Look. And she's so proud. Yes! You're 32. You need to move out. Give your mother a break. She's just being too kind. She ain't gonna say it. Get a job. I'm the middle of the family. Any middle children in there? Yes, I was the middle girl of my brother, and then I had a big sister, you know, the firstborn girl. She had, her socks matched her hair bows. I don't know. Just organized. And then the little baby of our family, she is just very sweet and precious. Cried when Lassie came on. There was something wrong with her. I'd get so aggravated, I'd say, that dog is making more money than our daddy will ever make. What are you crying over?
So as you can see from the video, birth order is something that all of us have to deal with on a daily basis because we're all born, and it's also just something kind of funny to think about what role it might play in your life. Today we're going to talk about the history of birth order study, some famous people and presidents and what their birth order is. We're going to look at a Time magazine article and some studies that they found, and I'm also going to show you a couple slides of some friends of mine and some birth order tips that they found. So the birth order theory was founded by Alfred Adler. He studied alongside Freud and Carl Jung. I thought it was interesting that as a child, what led him to become a physician was he was really sick, and he did not walk until he was 5 years old because he had rickets. He discovered that there are 4 main types of people: ruling, leading, avoiding, and socially useful people, and that your birth order determined what kind of personality type you would have. He also found or theorized that your personality type was fixed by the time you were age 5 years old. So let's look at some things that he said about birth order. Only children. Only children, their parents feel like birth is a miracle, so they tend to pamper and spoil their only child. This child usually has developed difficulty sharing, even into adulthood, and they prefer adult conversation even as children. Some famous only children would be my favorite: Frank Sinatra, Lance Armstrong, and Natalie Portman. The oldest, or firstborn, they feel dethroned by the next couple children. They got to have their parents' attention the whole time, and all of a sudden they have to share. It's very hard for them to learn how to share, in fact. They can have high expectations set by their parents and can be told that they need to be an example. I found it fascinating in my research that 22 of our U.S. presidents were all firstborn children, and the remainder of those were mostly the firstborn males of their siblings. Some famous firstborns would be Oprah Winfrey, Dan Rather, and Rush Limbaugh. The middle child. I feel bad for these ones because I feel like they get such a bad rap and a stereotype put on them, but they feel kind of squeezed in between 2 other children, or however many is in the family. They may have trouble being a fighter and kind of, coming up with cause in their life, but they seem to have a very even-tempered attitude. Adler said that this was the best birth order to be born in, but it was interesting because he was a middle child. Some famous middle children are Abraham Lincoln, Anne Hathaway, and David Letterman. the youngest or the baby of the family, they're kind of lucky because they get to have a lot of mothers and fathers that get to teach them things. The older children will teach them. They're never getting to be dethroned. They get to have their position for their whole life. So they can often be spoiled, and they sometimes tend to want to be bigger physically than their siblings. They might have huger than life goals and aspirations that never quite work out for them, but they get to be the jokester of the families. Some famous babies of the family are Jim Carrey, Drew Carey, and Billy Crystal. So in my research, I found an article published by Time Magazine in October of 2007, which found 2 different studies, one in Norway, and the one in Norway found that oldest children are actually smarter than subsequent children, and on average enjoy a 3-point advantage on their IQ. And I'm sure you're thinking, 3 points, it's really not that big a deal, but when you're talking about SAT scores, that translates into about 15 more points, and it can be the difference between an Ivy League school or not. The study in the Philippines showed that children that are born later than their older siblings are actually smaller in physical height as well as weight as adults. And this, you might think of the slight advantage that Peyton Manning, who is 6'5", has over his little brother who is 6'4", Eli. It doesn't help when he's trying to throw over the outstretched arms of a lineman. This study in the Philippines also found that younger siblings tend to be less vaccinated, less educated, less strapping, but they also tend to live more exhilarating lives, and they tend to be comedians or artists or entrepreneurs, as we saw from our examples. So I thought it would be really fun to go to social media and ask some of my friends who have a lot of children about birth order and what they see in their children. So I'd like to introduce you to my friends, the Yates. My friend Jolynn has 10 children. There's some spouses in there, so there's a couple more children in there. And I've known her for about 18 years, and she had a lot to say, so much so that it would take me 3 more presentations just to share with you what she shared with me. But what she noticed was after every 4th child, her birth order started all over. So that means like their 5th child acts more like a firstborn and so on. I think you can kind of see that. The next friends of mine are the Agers family, and they're expecting their 7th baby this summer. My friend Jessica said that she was really kind of stumped when it came to her crew, that her oldest son, Owen, he suffers from some social and anxiety disorders. So he doesn't have that firstborn personality characteristic that Adler was talking about. Instead, he's passed it on to his little sister, Mariah, who has no trouble taking charge. And my last friends are the Jones. My friend Emily has 3 girls. She said they are totally stereotypical, perfect Adler examples of what personality traits should be. But what I found interesting was Emily grew up in a house of 2, her and her sister, until her littlest sister was 13, in which time her mom had another baby. And Emily said that her little sister had a really hard time becoming the middle after having almost her whole adolescence as the baby. Emily said she had no problem because she loved to be the mom anyway, and so it just worked out really great for her. So in conclusion, your birth order can have a lot to say about who you are as a person, but it's not the final say. We all have choices that we make and kind of put in, but it's kind of neat to look at and kind of see if it matches up with what you are. So we looked at the history of birth order, starting with Alfred Adler, who studied with Freud and Jung, and the importance that he put on it. It was a serious thing to him. We also looked at some fun, famous people and presidents and their birth order, and I thought that it's so cool to think of how many presidents are firstborn. We looked at a Time Magazine article of 2 studies and some friends of mine. So with that, I'd like to leave you with one question. Can you tell what birth order I am?
Firstborn.
Firstborn. Thank you. Do I have any questions?